Listen. If you keep giving your heart to people who never earned the right to hold it, don't be surprised when it comes back to you in pieces. Choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. Let me start with a truth most of us don't want to admit. We bleed the most for the people who care the least. We pour out warmth, patience, forgiveness, and devotion, and somehow end up empty, shivering in the cold of our own generosity. And it took me a long time to understand that the bleeding doesn't stop until you stop it. Choosing yourself is not a dramatic act. It is not a war cry or a rebellion against the world. It is the quiet, steady moment when you finally whisper, I matter too. And for many of us, that whisper is the hardest sentence we will ever speak, because we were raised to believe that means sacrifice. That loyalty means staying, even when staying destroys you. That compassion means giving until your hands tremble and your chest tightens. And so we bleed. We bleed emotionally. We bleed spiritually. We bleed our confidence, our joy, our sense of worth. We bleed for people who never once paused to ask, are you okay? But something shifts, finally, when you realize that the world will gladly take every piece of you if you don't draw the line. The moment you let someone drain your spirit without pouring anything back, you teach them how to treat you. And the moment you choose yourself, you teach them something even more important. You are no longer available for your own destruction. So hear me clearly, the decision to stop bleeding love is not coldness. It's clarity. It's bravery. It's the reclamation of the parts of you that were never meant to be sacrificed. This is where your healing begins, not when they change, but when you choose. Let me tell you something honest, something raw. Loving without boundaries feels noble until it feels like slow emotional death. We tell ourselves, I can handle it. I can hold everything. I can love enough for both of us. But the truth is, no one is built to bleed endlessly and still stand strong. There's a cost to giving too much of yourself. And it's a cost most people don't notice until the bill arrives in the form of exhaustion, resentment, loneliness, and a quiet ache that follows you everywhere. You know what that ache is? It's the echo of your own needs crying out for attention. And the painful part, the people you're losing yourself for, they're not even aware of the price you're paying. They're living comfortably inside the house you built with your self-sacrifice while you're standing outside in the rain trying to pretend you're fine. Let me say something that might sting. People who benefit from your lack of boundaries will never encourage you to set them. They will enjoy your yes. They will enjoy your softness. They will enjoy your ability to forgive quickly, love deeply, and stay long after you should have walked away. But they will never tell you, hey, you're giving too much. Sit down, rest. You matter too. No, that reminder has to come from you. Because choosing yourself isn't about shutting the world out. It's about stopping the silent agreement you made to betray yourself just to keep people close. You can love deeply without bleeding constantly. You can care without collapsing. You can give without abandoning yourself. But only when you finally understand this, your heart isn't a battlefield where people get to take what they want. It's a sacred space, one that deserves protection, boundaries, and intention. When you forget that, the world takes advantage. When you remember it, the world changes how it treats you. There's a moment, quiet, subtle, almost invisible, when love stops being love and starts becoming self-abandonment. Most people don't even see it happening. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's not a breaking point. It's a slow unraveling. It begins when you silence your truth because you don't want to upset someone. Deepens when you hold back your needs because you're afraid they'll think you're too much. And it becomes dangerous when you start shrinking yourself so they feel bigger, stronger, more comfortable. This is the point where the wound opens. This is where the bleeding begins. And here's the hardest confession you'll ever make to yourself. You didn't lose yourself in one moment. You lost yourself in 1,000 tiny choices where you chose them over you. You stayed quiet to keep the peace. You accepted less than you deserved You over-explained, over-loved just to feel seen. You ignored the coldness in their voice, the distance in their actions, the inconsistency in their behavior. You convinced yourself that loving harder would fix everything. But that's not love. That's fear wearing the costume of devotion. Fear of being alone. Fear of being abandoned. Fear of being too difficult to love. Let me tell you something with tenderness, but absolute truth. Every time you ignore your own needs just to keep someone, you abandon the most important person in your life. And abandonment by yourself hurts more deeply than abandonment by anyone else. Because at least when others leave, you still have you. But when you leave yourself, there's nothing left to hold on to. Choosing yourself, finally, is not about pushing people away. It's about coming back home to the parts of you you've been neglecting. It's about returning to your worth, your voice, your power. You don't stop bleeding love by cutting people off. You stop bleeding when you stop cutting pieces of yourself to feed people who never offer anything back. Let's talk about the part most people avoid, the pattern, the cycle, the emotional loop that pulls you back into the arms of people who drain you. You don't choose painful relationships because you're weak. You choose them because pain feels familiar. You choose them because chaos feels like home. You choose them because the younger version of you learned that love must be earned, proved chaste, or fought for. So when someone makes you work for their affection, when they make you feel unworthy one moment and chosen the next, when they give you just enough sweetness to keep you hungry, your nervous system whispers, "This feels normal." It's not love. It's trauma dressed up as connection. And until you recognize that, you will keep bleeding for people who don't know how to handle the gift of your heart. Here's the truth many don't want to admit. We accept the love we were conditioned to believe we deserve. So if you grew up feeling unseen, you tolerate being ignored now. If you grew up fighting for attention, you chase emotionally unavailable people now. If you grew up believing love means sacrifice, you overgive now. Your present pain has a past. And nothing will change until you stop blaming the world and start understanding your inner programming. You're not broken. You're patterned. But here's the beautiful part. Patterns can be rewritten. Choosing yourself is the act of breaking that generational, emotional, psychological script. It is the moment you say, "I will not love the way I was taught if it hurts the person I am now." It is the moment you realize you don't need to beg to be chosen. You don't need to twist yourself into a softer shape. You don't need to bleed to prove you're worthy. You only need to remember who you were before the world convinced you that love must hurt. There comes a moment in every person's life, a quiet breaking point that no one else sees. It doesn't look like screaming. It doesn't look like falling apart on the floor. It doesn't look dramatic at all. It looks like stillness. It looks like you sitting on the edge of your bed, staring into nothing, realizing, I can't live like this anymore. Not because someone did something new. Not because the pain suddenly changed, but because you finally saw the truth without the fog of hope, illusion, or denial. You finally understood you've been begging for the bare minimum. You've been tolerating inconsistency like it was affection. You've been calling crumbs love. Because you were starving, and something inside you snaps, not in anger, but in clarity. This is the moment where your soul says, you're done bleeding for people who don't even notice you're hurting. It's the moment you stop arguing with reality. You stop believing their potential over their patterns. You stop waiting for the apology they'll never give. You stop hoping they will magically transform into the person you imagined in your head. It's the moment you realize they won't change. But you can, and that awareness hurts. It feels like grief wearing armor. It feels like letting go of a dream you tried so hard to make real. But it's also the most powerful turning point of your life, because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to betraying yourself the same way. You can't pretend their treatment is not that bad. You can't convince yourself to stay small just to keep someone close. Your breaking point is not the end. It's the beginning. It's where you stop trying to fix, rescue, or win people who do not know how to love you. It's where you turn inward and finally ask the question you've avoided for years. Here's the part no one prepares you for. Choosing yourself doesn't hurt because it's wrong. It hurts because you're finally breaking a habit of self-abandonment. Guilt shows up like an uninvited guest, not because you did anything wrong, but because you finally stopped doing the thing that was slowly destroying you. You'll feel guilty for saying no, guilty for not answering immediately, guilty for taking space, guilty for resting, guilty for protecting your peace, guilty for not carrying everyone's weight on your back. And that guilt isn't truth, it's conditioning. You were trained to believe that choosing yourself is selfish. You were trained to believe that prioritizing your mental and emotional health makes you difficult. You were trained to believe that love means setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. So when you stop, your body reacts, your mind protests, your heart trembles a little, but keep going. Because guilt is just the echo of an old identity trying to survive. Rebuilding yourself is not glamorous. It is sacred, private work. It happens in the small moments. When you choose rest instead of explaining yourself, when you say, I'm not available, without writing a 3-paragraph apology, when you listen to your intuition instead of your fear, when you walk away from the table where love is served cold, when you finally choose peace over pleasing. Rebuilding means giving yourself the tenderness you used to hand out to everyone else. It means looking in the mirror and saying, I'm worth saving too. Some people won't like the new you, not because you're wrong, but because the old you made their life easier. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them adjust or fall away. This chapter of your life is not about keeping everyone happy. It's about building a version of you who doesn't bleed for love, but grows from it. Let me tell you something powerful. You don't have to stop loving. You just have to stop disappearing. For so long, you believed love required you to shrink, to soften yourself until you became unrecognizable, to adjust your voice, your needs, your truth, just to be tolerated. You thought love meant giving someone the map to your heart and letting them redraw the territory as they pleased. But real love, healthy love, doesn't ask you to vanish. Here's what it does ask for: presence, honesty, courage, boundaries, reciprocity, but losing yourself, never. You were never meant to fade in someone else's glow. You were meant to shine alongside them. The truth is, loving without losing yourself is a skill, one you were never taught. No one showed you how to speak your needs without fear. No one showed you how to stay connected to someone without disconnecting from yourself. No one taught you the difference between being devoted and being drained. So now you're learning, slowly, tenderly, boldly. You're learning that saying, I need, is not a burden. You're learning that setting boundaries is not punishment. You're learning that you don't have to rescue, fix, or carry someone to prove your worth. You're learning that no is a complete sentence, not a crisis. And most importantly, you're learning that love that costs you your identity is not love, it's attachment. Love that costs you your voice is not love, it's fear. Love that costs you your peace is not love, it's dependency. You deserve a love that honors who you are, a love that holds you, not drains you. A love that adds to your life, not replaces it. A not replaces it fully if that meets you respectfully. But that love begins with you. You cannot receive what you are unwilling to give yourself. And the moment you start loving yourself with the same intensity you once gave away freely, that's the moment the bleeding stops. There comes a point when you realize that love alone is not enough. Not without boundaries, not without standards, not without a line in the sand that says, you can come this far, but no further. Most people misunderstand boundaries. They think boundaries are walls. They think boundaries are rejection. They think boundaries are cruelty. But boundaries are not a prison. They are protection. Protection of your energy, protection of your emotional health, protection of your spirit, your time, your dignity. Boundaries are the lifeline you throw to yourself when you're drowning in other people's demands. A boundary is the moment you say, I will not explain myself repeatedly. I will not accept disrespect disguised as a joke. I will not be someone's emotional punching bag. I will not give what drains me. I will not remain where I am unseen. These declarations are not selfish. They're self-respect in action. But here's the secret most people overlook, boundaries don't push the right people away. They push the wrong people out. The people who truly love you won't be intimidated by your boundaries. They'll be grateful for them. Because boundaries make relationships honest. Boundaries make communication clear. Boundaries make love healthier. But the people who were using you, the ones who fed off your silence, the ones who needed your weakness to feel strong, the ones who only liked you when you were convenient, available, and self-sacrificing, they will fall away, not because you changed, but because you stopped bleeding for them. And when that happens, you will feel something unexpected. Peace. The kind of peace that feels like breathing for the first time. The kind of peace that feels like coming home to yourself. The kind of peace that makes you wonder why you ever tolerated so much chaos. Choosing yourself becomes easier when you see how boundaries transform your entire life. Now comes the part that most people resist because it feels impossible. You have to love yourself so fiercely that no one else's neglect can touch you. I'm not talking about a soft, polite self-love, the kind that whispers, you're okay, I guess. I'm talking about a fierce, unshakable, non-negotiable self-love, the kind that protects you, honors you, and refuses to settle for anything less than respect. This is the love that stops you from bending into shapes that hurt you. The love that allows you to walk away from the people, patterns, and situations that drain you. The love that tells you, I am enough. I always have been. I always will be. Radical self-love is not arrogant. It is not selfish. It is revolutionary. Because most of us have spent our lives trying to extract validation from others, waiting for permission to exist fully. We've given away our hearts, our energy, our voice, hoping someone else would see our value, and most of the time, they didn't. So radical self-love is your declaration, I will no longer wait for someone else to choose me. I choose me. When you embrace this kind of love, the world feels different. People's opinions matter less. Your choices are guided by your own truth, not their expectations. You stand taller, not because you want to intimidate, but because you refuse to shrink anymore. And here's the secret. The more fiercely you love yourself, the less others can hurt you. Because you no longer give them the power to bleed you dry. You no longer hand over pieces of your heart for temporary comfort. You no longer tolerate less than you deserve. It's not easy. It takes courage, consistency, and sometimes solitude. But every time you act from self-love rather than self-sacrifice, your heart grows stronger, your boundaries grow firmer, your life grows fuller. Self-love isn't a destination. It's a daily practice, a conscious choice, a radical rebellion against a world that tried to convince you that you were less than you truly are. Now listen carefully, because this is where everything changes. You don't have to wait for anyone to love you fully, respect you consistently, or see your worth completely. Because the most important choice, the most radical life-altering choice is yours. Choosing yourself is not a one-time act. It's a lifetime commitment. A vow to your own heart that says, I am done bleeding for those who do not see my value. I am done giving my power away. You've spent years bending, shrinking, apologizing, and giving, hoping, praying, waiting for someone to finally love you like you deserve. And maybe they didn't. Maybe they won't. Maybe that's not your fault. Here's the truth that will set you free. Nothing and nobody can hurt you unless you allow it. And when you choose yourself, you are no longer allowing it. You start showing up differently. You start speaking differently. You start resting differently. You start loving differently. First yourself, and then everyone else, without ever sacrificing the pieces of your soul that make you whole. The world may push, pull, and challenge you. Old habits will whisper, go back, give more, stay longer. But You are stronger now. You are wiser now. You are unshakable because you have returned to the source of your power, your own heart. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It is survival. It is radical. It is revolutionary. It is the single most courageous act you can commit in your life. So today, right here, right now, decide to stop apologizing for your worth. Stop bleeding for validation you'll never receive. Stop shrinking to make others comfortable. Stop waiting for permission to exist fully. And start choosing yourself, because when you finally do, truly, unapologetically, you will discover the love you were bleeding for all along was inside you. The peace you were starving for has always been yours to claim. And the life you've been afraid to live is waiting with arms wide open for the person who finally chooses themselves. Choose yourself. Stop bleeding love. Live fully. Now.